I'm RJ Lassiter. I'm a junior at Guilford, transfer student from Methodist College and from Coastal Carolina, environmental science major.
Can you talk a little bit about what made you interested in cheerleading, I guess, or like what was the circumstance that got you involved in it?
Well, to be honest, like as a kid, I was kind of pushed into sports. Football, baseball, basketball was like the big things, and to help most athletes who small town people think who's going to be like D1 prospects, they put you through dance classes and ballet classes to help with balance and rhythm. And my parents put me in the gymnastics probably at like 7 or 8. So I was doing gymnastics in like a gymnastics / cheerleading gym my whole life. And it just kind of was like a segue out, I guess.
So there was a lot of other kids that played sports that were in like dance and gymnastic kind of classes?
Yeah, there was a bunch of like other athletes that played on the football and baseball team who took dance classes with me in high school. And outside of like high school, we had a gym that I worked at called Randolph Gymnastics Academy. And there's like a bunch of the offensive linemen would come and just do stretching. Like they would get the cheerleaders to help them stretch so they could be more limber and a little more flexible so they wouldn't get hurt or pull muscles as easily.
So you were on the football team and the baseball team?
Yep.
Okay. And any other sports?
High school, I played football, baseball, and wrestling. I was on the wrestling team. For 4 years, I've done all those. Never thought of cheerleading at all. But college, freshman year of college, I went to Methodist in Fayetteville and played football and baseball. Scored a touchdown on offense and done a round-off backhand spring tuck in the end zone. And after the game, the cheerleading coach came up to me and was like, "I'll give you scholarship money if you come and do that on the cheerleading team."
Cool. Wow.
Yeah.
So in high school, you never did cheerleading?
No.
As like a competitive thing?
No. There was like 2 guys on the cheerleading team in high school, but they were way stronger like dealing with things than I would have been, because stereotypically male cheerleaders like get a whole lot of hassle and get talked about, but I didn't do it. I was kind of stuck in like football and baseball.
Yes. How was your first practice?
My first cheerleading practice?
Yeah.
Oh man, it was kind of creepy at first because I was like football guy coming onto the cheerleading team. There was all these little tiny flamboyant guys on the cheerleading team, just hey, and I didn't know how to react to that because I'd never really been around it. The guys in the gym were all like big and bulky, and first practice they said all we want you to do is just flip. So I didn't do nothing but round off backhand spring tucks, round off backhand spring, first practice. But it was kind of cool though because it was like 4 guys and 20 girls. So I got paid to go to school to hang out with the girls on the cheerleading team.
So, yeah, my next question is kind of about that. Like, what kind of dynamic do you think it had because of the fact that, like, most things are, like, male-dominated in the world.
Okay.
And so you're on a team with, like, mostly females, so I'm wondering if there was still some sort of, like, kind of male-centered thing happening, or was it, like, female-dominated, and, like, how different of a dynamic was it, I guess, than, like, regular, like, a sports team or something?
Like a football team or like a all-male team? Well, we had the head coach was a female. And even though they have all-girl teams and then they have co-ed teams, so cheerleading is not just a all-girl sport. They have all-guy cheerleading teams and they have co-ed and then they have all-girls. The co-ed team that I was on was still kind of based around men because you had to have the guys on the bottom to hold the girls up. But if there were no girls flying, then it's just a bunch of guys standing there looking like I'm big and swole. But I think that honestly it was more revolved around the women because they were the better athletes for the sport. You know, they were more limber, they were more flexible. They've been doing it their whole lives. Like, if I were to take them on the football field, I wouldn't be scared. But me doing backflips on the concrete was kind of like, oh my God, you know, and these girls just do it like it's like habit.
The change in the dynamic, do you think that affected how you acted in this sort of a situation where you were around mostly women? Do you think it changed how you acted?
Me personally? Not me personally. I was brought up in a household of all women, raised by my mom, my grandma, my cousins. Like, it was 26 like people in my family close by, and 8 of them are boys. So I've been around women my whole life. It was kind of weird because these were women that I were on a team with that you had to like have a partnership with. You had to kind of grow a relationship with these girls. To see what they were scared to do, what their talents were, what they were more confident in. I don't feel like it changed me personally because I was brought up around a bunch of women, but the majority of the guys that were on the team were strictly football players, and it was harder for them to kind of cope with the clapping and the whole chanting and throwing up like hands and stuff like that. Like, most of the guys were like, I'm not doing this. I'm just gonna stand here and look like a stiff being, I guess. But I don't know. For me, not as much as other people.
Like, do you think that the way that you acted on the football team, like the way that was acceptable to act to prove that you were like good at the sport, is different in like a female dominated sport than in a male dominated sport?
No, not at all. I feel like there's a difference between cocky and confident. And I feel like you have to kind of flirt with cocky to understand what it fully is to be confident and good at something. And as good as I felt like I was at baseball or football, I hit somebody and, you know, just like those girls do round off backhand spring kick doubles, and they land it and they're like, woo, you know, like they express themselves kind of the same way we would on a football field, or you hit a home run and everybody meets you out and like, good job, good job. Same way if a girl throws like a sick pass, like a sick tumbling pass, or sticks a really hard stunt in the air, like, it's pretty, to be completely honest, the most intense thing I've ever encountered was college nationals in Daytona Beach. Over all the football I've played, over all the baseball I've played, college nationals, crazy.
How is it crazy?
We'll say 30,000 women and 30,000 women, and we'll say probably 8,000 men. Beautiful women, all extremely confident, full of testosterone, just like men are, but they're good at what they're doing. They're the top athletes in that field. I mean, we can tumble, we can't fly like the girls do. We don't have to go up in baskets and stuff. Pretty much guys are just like the workhorse, like the mules of the team. We do all the throwing and the catching of baskets, and a co-ed team. But then there's all girls teams who the girls throw. But it was extremely competitive. Like, no one wants to lose, and it's no individual. It's a team sport, but it's all individual. Like, you have to make sure that you hit your stunt so that the person behind you is on time with their routine. And if you don't hold a stunt long enough, or if you pop off too soon, then it spirals down differently than what your routine's supposed to be. So way more coordinated than I would say baseball or football. It's like jumping off sides in football, kind of compared to how long you have to hold a stunt in the air before you pop it off and catch a girl. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so do you think that you seem like you have a lot of experience playing with like team sports, and I'm wondering if you think that going into cheerleading, if you were like well received by the team, if it was like a different kind of thing at all, being a female dominated sport than like male dominated sports.
You mean, was I accepted on the all girls just like I would on football? Yeah, to be honest, the girls probably accepted you more because they're like, yes, we got guys on the team, so we can go co-ed, because all girls want to do co-ed. Like, All girls nationals is not as big as co-ed nationals. So like co-ed is like D1 ball. You know, everybody wants to play the best of the best. And the girls really were accepting to most of all of the guys that were on the team. There was a couple, I don't know how to say it, extremely flamboyant guys on the team. And they were less accepting than the women were, because I feel like they thought we were kind of stepping on their toes because they had like some masculinity among the women, and then we come in as like straight men who like, I don't like nothing but women, you know, and I feel like they didn't accept us as much as the women did. The women were like, heck yeah, we got guys on the team. They were open to stay late for practice, like to teach anything you needed help with. The girls on the cheerleading team were like, I'll help you with it. We'll stay after just so we can get it right, because they wanted to win nationals just like we want to win nationals.
What did your family think when you joined cheerleading?
I told my mom, she was the first person I called. I was like, Mom, I just scored a touchdown, and because I called her at halftime, and I was like, Mom, I scored a touchdown today, because she didn't come to the football game. And she's like, well, is the game over? I was like, no, but the cheerleading coach came to me and asked me to do cheerleading. She would give me scholarship money. And she was like, go for it. Free money is free money, you know. My dad was a sports a sport. We've always considered cheerleading a sport because I kind of grew up in that like kind of atmosphere, I guess, just athletics in general. I didn't really have anybody give me any grief about it besides like my homeboys back home. They're like, oh my God, you're on a cheerleading team with all the girls. You gay? I'm like, no, I'm not. But then they switch it up. I'm like, oh, you must be hooking up with all the girls on the cheerleading team. That's not true either. Like, you grow like these girls on the cheerleading team become like sisters, to be completely honest. You hang out with them all day, all night for like 6 months straight. People are going to assume what they want, but it's like family, you know? So
yeah, that was actually one of my questions, is like, was there a sexual like aspect to it at all, being around a bunch of women?
Well, there's beautiful women everywhere, there were beautiful women on the cheerleading team. The coach really didn't have a non-date policy, like you couldn't talk to any girls on the team. Actually, I was dating a girl on the cheerleading team before I joined the cheerleading team, so I kind of got like some of the girls on. Back to one of the questions you asked me, if people were accepting. I feel like some of the girls on the team were like, oh, he's on the team just because his girl's on the team. But I was on the team like, hey, that's free money. But none of the girls really were like non-accepting. But for like the tension-wise between male and female, not really. Like I said, you kind of look at these girls every day. You see them in the gym. You see them sweating. You see them at their worst. I mean, I'm not trying. Women, I want to be beautiful, and you want to see me all the time. Perfect society has formed me to look like this. At practice, you're sweating. They got sports bras on and Spanx and Sophie shorts. It's kind of hard to be like, oh my God, this girl is super hot when she's dripping sweat and it's dripping on you. Whenever you're holding her in the air, you're like, oh my God, this is disgusting. You know. So I don't know. I don't feel like it was as big a sexual tension, but whenever you get the nationals and you see all these other colleges in the whole nation in Florida at one time, you're looking at every other team like, oh my God, I wish I was on that team. I wish I was on that team.
What was your relationship with the other guys on the team?
Most
How
of them
did
were
you
football
get along
players.
with them?
Most of them were football players or other athletes that had played sports or done gymnastics or something physical or just not a sport in the past. I got along with all the guys real good, and then the guys, we would get really competitive with each other. Once we kind of bought into we're going to be a cheerleader and we have to work at it just like we do football if we want to be good at it. So it was like I'm going to be better than you today in practice. No, I'm going to be better than you today in practice. So we would kind of like feed off of each other, you know what I'm saying, to kind of make each other better. And us doing that, it would push the girls because they see that we're actually trying to work, you know, to get this. And it would make the whole team kind of come together a whole lot tighter than if you were just like half-assing, I guess.
Did this kind of change your idea of like gender roles at all? Like what it means to be like a woman or a man?
Can you rephrase the question, man?
Like, okay, did this experience of like being in a female dominated sport and dealing with a lot of women and competing with women, which is something you weren't really used to before,
Right.
did that like change your idea of like what it is to be like manly or like feminine?
Definitely, because you see, every guy sees the after product of the woman. Like, you don't see her when she wakes up in the morning like, oh my God, I got to do all this to get beautiful and all this. You don't see all that. You see the after product. You're like, oh my God, she's gorgeous, but you don't know all the work that she's put in to do this. Whenever you're competing, women are trying to win just as much as men are. I feel like competition is competition regardless if you're a man or a woman. But in the sense of cheerleading, I feel like the women are way more competitive, and it makes you look at them. You don't really look at them like women. You don't look at them as a woman. You look at her as, this is another teammate. Like, she's on my team regardless if she's a man or not. She's going to give 110%, just like I'm going to give 110%. But it was still like, there's the boobs, you know. It's kind of hard to zone. I mean, being real, it's like, that's still a woman, but she's working her ass off, and she's better at it than me. So I need to pick my game up.
So it kind of seems like you're hinting at this idea that like women are like timid, and that this kind of challenged that for you.
I wouldn't say women are timid. I would say I was the timid one coming into this situation, just because I'd never really been on a co-ed team dealing with women before. The girls that have done cheerleading have always like had guys in the gym or guys on like a cheerleading team before. I would say that the men were definitely more timid in like competition than the women, because the women had been doing it their whole life. You know, the girls who cheered had been cheering and cheering and cheering. And then the guys that hadn't been cheering like me, it was kind of a new experience. So you had to kind of get in where you fit in and make sure you didn't mess up, because if you did mess up, they were going to let you know it, just like if you messed up in a predominantly male sport.
What kinds of things do you think affected how the cheerleaders like dealt with you, kind of saw you and treated you, you know, based on kind of like demographics of like where you're from, your sexual orientation, your like race, your, you know, experience with the sport? Like, what kinds of those things do you think affected the way that they treated you the most?
I don't feel like race really had a big deal about it, as long as you were there busting your ass trying to get the same goal as everybody else was on the team. Race really wasn't a big deal. On the team where I grew up from, race was a big deal though. Demographics where I'm from, I don't think that was either a big deal. Like, they might have picked on my accent a little bit, you know, but it was nothing like that. Me being open-minded to everything and not pointing a finger and actually taking different points of views and different people's, I don't know, where they're coming from, kind of helped me out a whole lot. But I think the thing that kind of separated it most for me was just because I had never really done it before. And me being open-minded, they accepted me really well, because I'm talkative and I'm always down for a new challenge. So I don't feel like I really had too much to hinder me in that sense. But I feel like the thing that probably was the most difficult was just having to be on a team with a different sex, and I'm going to go as hard as I can. Like in football, if you see a girl in pads, you're not going to hit her as hard as you can. If you see a girl on the tumbling mat, you're not going to push her out of the way. But if she sees you on the mat, she's going to continue to tumble regardless if you're there or not. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, though, my overall experience with cheerleading and being a male has helped me in life, because I look at things differently than most people would. There's still a bunch of people who still don't think cheerleading is a sport, and I think that's ridiculous, because if you've never done it, then you have no clue. You have no clue. It's harder than any other sport I've played. It's a one-on-one battle with yourself every day, and this one-on-one battle is with you, and then everybody's going through this same battle with themselves to make sure that they do their stuff right, and we all have to do this together as a team, as one unit, in a 3-minute and 20-second routine in front of thousands of people. Like, really, I feel like it changed me who I am, because I feel like I look at things a whole lot differently now. Like, I would never be like, oh, that's a girl. She's just a woman. She can't play a sport. She's not as rough and tough. Yeah, right. Like, if you've ever seen a girl do a round-off back handspring kick double, or do double backs, or do punch fronts, like, you're like, oh my God, where do they get that from? Because most women are more flexible than men, and it's just amazing to be able to do some stuff like that.
Is there anything else you want to say?
I feel like if any man even thought about gymnastics or any cheerleading whatsoever, if you've questioned it and if you had any interest in it, it would be a life-changing experience. One, you get to hang out with hot women. Sorry. One, you get to hang out with hot women. And then two, I feel like it will open your mind to not be as biased as most people are, just looking at things from a male's perspective. Whenever you're in a predominantly female sport, you kind of have to be able to take what your thoughts are and kind of adapt them into how the actual sport goes in the woman's sport. I feel like it'll help you, like, to be able to conversate in society, or to even sit down and do a film like this.